Peyton Manning, one of the most well-accomplished players in NFL history and the greatest regular season performer in football. Ever since he was drafted in 1998, he has turned the Indianapolis Colts from a laughingstock of the league, decades removed from the dominance of the early reign of Johnny Unitas, to a whole new level of excellence for years. This peaking in 2006 when Manning brought the Colts to their peak with a Super Bowl win. Looking into Peyton Manning's career, he was easily one of the best quarterbacks in his era, earning tons of awards, known for being an amazing passer along with having an extraordinary ability, made him a threat for many teams in the league during his time. Honestly, talent-wise, you can't really get any better than this. You can honestly make a good argument, aside from Super Bowls and playoff success, he might be better than Tom Brady. His time ended, but his best was yet to come. His time with the Broncos was nothing short of amazement, putting up the best season by any quarterback in NFL history and even made it to the Super Bowl. And although falling a little short in Super Bowl 48, he redeemed himself in Super Bowl 50 and walked off into the sunset. Manning's career was nothing short of spectacular. Only a few names who can even be put in the same sentence as him, but one of those names is somebody you are familiar with: Aaron Rodgers, the greatest thrower of the football ever, the Packer legend. Aaron Rodgers is an amazing regular season performer and continued the Packer success. Making his starting debut in 2008, he earned the spot previously held by Brett Favre. Rodgers made fans of Green Bay forget about Favre quickly, as 2 years later made the epic playoff run to win the Super Bowl. Great clutch performer. His throwing ability is off the charts. His ability to extend the play makes him a severe threat as well. And with his recent back-to-back MVP performances in recent times, he shows no sign of slowing down. He is just too good, but does this put him above the Sheriff? Sure, they are comparable, no doubt, but who is better, Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers? Well, let's find out. I bring to you Peyton Manning versus Aaron Rodgers. For us to determine a clear winner, we need to go over a few key X factors that make their positions important and compare them to each other. We do this so at the end we can come to a complete conclusion of who is the better quarterback. For those who happen to be a little new here and a little unfamiliar on how things go, I did similar comparisons to these in the past, so if you want to have a look at previous matchups, then I'll have a card up top and a link in the playlist down below. These types of verses are pretty easy to follow, so hopefully there should be no confusion, so let's get on to the factors. Both players are very different in terms of playstyles, so to make a good comparison, I will use the following factors: QB ability, stats, achievements and accolades, and impact. But before we get started on this video, this is simply my personal opinion, so just take this with a pinch of salt. I should have a poll up right here so you can cast your vote here and comment down below in your pick if you happen to disagree or even agree, or just, you know, like the video so we can have a chat. I don't know. But now we got all the fluff out of the way, let's begin with the first factor: QB ability. So for Aaron Rodgers, where do I begin? When it comes to throwing ability, Aaron Rodgers is probably the best to ever do it as of right now. He makes insane throws, and his ability to extend any given passing play is extremely impressive as well. When bringing up a QB archetype, he comes off as a precision passer, however not a traditional one, more like a precision passer with some flash. A typical precision passer would be, they would often not put the ball in harm's way and usually takes a safer option. The result of this would be quarterbacks with typically less interceptions and turnovers, but usually get sacked quite a bit more often due to longer time in the pocket. Quarterbacks that instantly come to mind are Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. However, the flash element Rodgers has is what makes this very interesting, as when needed to, he can make tight coverage throws and some precise back shoulder fades as well. Aaron Rodgers, he falls in this category very well with that ability to extend the play, and his legs make him deadly. His legs also allows him to stay in the pocket longer, which means gives himself more time to find a break in the coverage and make the safer pass when needed. Aaron Rodgers' ability to throw the ball is already top tier, but that mobility aspect is severely underrated. Topping off with an extremely quick throwing motion, it's pretty safe to say when it comes down to sheer throwing ability, he is rarely matched. Now, as far as Manning goes, he's no slouch. Not nearly as mobile, Peyton Manning still has a very quick and fluid motion when throwing the ball. But what he lacks in mobility, he makes up for with his field intelligence and his special trump card, the Omaha. The Omaha is a special play adjustment for Peyton Manning where he is not only able to audible plays to whatever plays he wants to be a certain coverage, but he can also alter the snap count, oftentimes without the opponent even knowing. This was Manning's almost special ability and can allow him to get the defense to switch in the defense in different schemes where he is given complete control. Impressive showing here, but when looking at the two, who gets the edge here? When it comes to sheer talent with throwing the ball, there is no contest. Manning lacks the ability to extend the play really well, and with good defense, Manning can be completely negated, while I see Rodgers having much more to work with here. But when it comes to intangibles, is a little more even here. Many would have argued that leadership and the ability to lead a team is an important trait for great quarterbacks, and most of them do have this, and Aaron Rodgers does not really possess, while Manning does, along with the Omaha. And when you put those together, it makes it a lot more interesting. But even with Manning's intangibles, I would still give the edge to Rodgers. Manning's Omaha is really impressive, but there are many times where it was completely useless to him and can sometimes backfire in his face and cause many high turnover games. The arm talent can't really match either with Rodgers. Manning's a little easier to get off balance with some pressure, and with the lack of mobility, he's easier to shut down. So the edge for QB ability goes to Aaron Rodgers. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of this analysis and talk about the stats. Although not the most important thing, it could still give us a pretty good picture of the player's personal success throughout their careers, both with impressive numbers. So let's start with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers, as of the recording of this video, is still playing in the league ever since getting his first full season start in 2008. During this time, he managed to accumulate 59,055 yards, 475 touchdown passes, 105 interceptions, and completed 65.3% of his passes. And for passer rating, he averaged a 103.6 average passer rating, and finally has an average QBR of 66.99. What stands out the most here is the amazing touchdown to interception ratio, and this is a direct effect of his play style I've mentioned before. As for Peyton Manning, during his 13 years in Indianapolis and 4 years in Denver, he amassed 71,940 total passing yards, 539 touchdowns, 233 interceptions, and a 65.3% completion rate, while his passer rate is at a 96.5 and an average QBR of 74.1. Not bad at all, so let's have a look at the two and compare right off the bat. This was kind of what I expected, and what surprised me when looking at the stats side by side was the completion percentage, as they currently have the exact same. Overall, Manning beats out Rodgers in total yards, touchdowns, and has a better QBR, while on the other hand, Rodgers has less interceptions, a better passer rating, and has a better touchdown to interception ratio, while both have the exact same completion percentage. However, looking at the final stats doesn't really cover the whole story. Manning played longer, and Rodgers sat out for the first 3 years of his career. Manning played in 265 total games, while Rodgers only played in 223. So how can we make up the difference? Well, we need to calculate the averages for the two. This will completely even the playing field and compare all of their active years where we can avoid any inactive ones. In Rodgers' case, we will count his time from 2008 to 2022. And for Manning, he also missed the 2011 season and most of his final season in Denver. So to make it fair, we will calculate all the stats from 1999 to 2014. So let's have a look at their seasonal averages. Manning averages 33.6 touchdowns per season, 13.7 interceptions, 4,396 yards, 66.1% completion percentage, and a 99.4 passer rate. For Rodgers, you get something really surprising, as he averages 31.6 touchdowns, 6.9 interceptions, 3,915 passing yards, a 65.4% completion rate, and a 110.89 passer rate. When looking at these stats side by side, Manning beats out Rodgers in touchdowns, yards, and completion percentage, while Rodgers gets the edge in less interceptions and a higher passer rating. Overall, Manning beats out Rodgers in more categories. However, if the names were taken out of the equation and I just looked at it as QB1 who had these stats, while QB2 had these stats without any previous context, I would take QB2 with Rodgers' stats. Sure, he has less yards by quite a bit, but he has just about half the interceptions here, and he has noticeably a higher passer rate. I know Rodgers will be a lot safer with the ball, but what I will give Peyton Manning an advantage for is for the many spurts of his stats where he's just a lot better than Rodgers was. Example being his 2013 season, which was definitely better than any of Rodgers' seasons, and you can even argue that his 2004 season was better as well. Manning was a lot better statistically in spurts, while Rodgers was really consistent throughout the years, with of course a few exceptions. So if I go back to the QB1 and QB2 reference, if you happen to know QB1 can put up a 55 touchdown season, well, then my choice will change. Honestly, you can go either way and pick whichever one you prefer. But for me, I could also go really, either way. But for now, I will give the slightest edge to Peyton Manning for stats. Achievement is one of the biggest factors when talking about a player's greatness. It's a good way to measure feats and can tell a much different story to stats. Achieving something can really take you anywhere. Both players having achieved things only a select few have done up to this point. And Peyton Manning, although not the first to achieve everything, but he is definitely one of the most notable players in this category. Over the course of his 17-year career, Manning has acquired 5 MVP awards, 14 Pro Bowls, 7 first-team All-Pro selections, 3 second-team All-Pro selections, 2 Offensive Player of the Year awards, 2-time Super Bowl champion as Super Bowl MVP, led the league in passing touchdowns 4 times, led the league in passing yards 3 times, and led the league in completion percentage 2 times, and had the highest QB rating 2 times. Oh, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Looking at these achievements, it is insane how he was able to do this for so long and arguably got better after his neck injury for a little bit, in Denver of course, where he achieved even more. I'm not sure if any other player can really match this regular season success Manning had, at least for now, I think. Now for Aaron Rodgers. He is a 4-time NFL MVP as of right now, Super Bowl 45 champion and MVP, 10-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first team All-Pro, 1-time second team All-Pro, led the league in touchdowns 2 times, a 1-time completion percentage leader, and led the league in QB rating 4 times. Overall, this is really impressive. These players combined have 9 MVP awards, and looking at the two, the difference is pretty apparent. And to keep this segment short, I am comfortably giving Peyton Manning the edge here. I mean, he has more MVPs, more Pro Bowls, total All-Pro selections, passing titles, touchdown titles, and completion percentage titles. He also has 1 more Super Bowl. However, I won't hold the Hall of Fame thing over Rodgers because I mean, we all know he's gonna get there once he retires, so that will just take time. But enough said, Peyton Manning gets the edge for achievements and accolades. Last and certainly not least, impact. How impactful was each player on their respective teams and organizations? We'll start off with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's impact was nothing short of incredible. Now, I did just make a video last week about the Colts and how dominant they were the 50s and some of a good portion of the 60s, which I mean, by the way, check it out. I got a card up top and link in the description. Wink, wink. But what I failed to mention in that video was that soon after their Super Bowl 5 victory, they collapsed. I mean, sure, they were pretty solid up to the 1978 season, but from onwards, they were mediocre at best and just awful at worst. The Colts later relocated to Indianapolis in 1983. In fact, the Colts from 1978 to 1999 has never even had more than 10 wins in a season and had not won a playoff game since 1971. Things were looking bad for Indy and they needed a change, and Peyton Manning brought that a year after he got drafted and brought the Colts dominance. They made the playoffs every year apart from the 2001 campaign and managed to make the Super Bowl 2 times and winning 1 of them. Manning managed to turn a laughingstock franchise to a dominant AFC powerhouse. Looking on the other side, Aaron Rodgers also brought success to Green Bay. However, it was in a little bit of a different circumstance, and these circumstances were a little less dire. When Aaron Rodgers was drafted in 2005, the Packers were still under Brett Favre, and there was already a problem. The Packers at that point were still a really good team, but Brett Favre was starting to want out of Green Bay and retire. I mean, we all know that's like not the case. This was presented a problem in 2004, and this got the Packers worried. So in 2005, they got Rodgers with the 24th pick in the draft, draft that year. Soon after, in 2007, after a devastating loss to the Giants in the NFC Championship game, they decided to stick with Aaron, and they had a little bit of a stumble at first, but just 2 years later in 2010, they end up winning the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers gave Green Bay continued success and making playoffs consistently and hardly missing time. However, he never got back to another Super Bowl since 2010, despite many opportunities. As for playoff wins, he comes off as a little lackluster. But Manning also has his problem as well, so he had a lot of first-round exits during his prime with the Colts. And when comparing the two players side by side with their playoff records, they are both pretty lackluster. Manning's record being 14-13, which is a 51.9 win percentage, while Rodgers is a little higher with a 54.5 win percent. Despite the win percentage, I do think Peyton Manning had an overall better playoff impact. Mostly because you have to take in the level of difficulty as well. Just about every time Manning lost, it was to Tom Brady and the Patriots, which that's just extremely hard to beat. While Rodgers was typically playing less competition for the most part. And since Manning has been to 3 Super Bowls compared to Rodgers' 1, I would still give it to Peyton, and impact for their team, I would still give the edge to Manning, as Manning was initially started the success to a desperate organization, while Rodgers played the more Steve Young role in maintaining of that success. So with that in mind, I will give the edge to Peyton Manning for impact. So now we're here, the final verdict: who is considered the better quarterback? This was an overall close matchup all the way up to this point, and looking back, as we went over 4 factors when determining this. For QB ability, I gave the comfortable edge to Aaron Rodgers. Just for blatant talent, for stats, I really could have went either way here, but I gave the slightest edge to Manning. For achievements and accolades, I gave the comfortable edge to Manning. And finally, for impact and playoff success, I gave the slight edge to Manning as well. So who is the winner here? I would give this one to Peyton Manning. I personally believe that Rodgers still has a ways to go in order to match with what Peyton has done over his career. Peyton has just done some crazy feats and accolades and had the stats to back it up. Sure, Rodgers has a better throwing ability, but he just can't really hang with Manning in any other department in the end. Even if Rodgers gets another Super Bowl and another MVP, I would probably still give it to Manning, although it would be even closer than it already was. But of course, this was just my opinion on the matter. But what did you think? Was I wrong about this? Should Rodgers have been the victor? Or if you agree with me, please comment that down below. I really enjoyed this one and hope to make more versus videos in the future. So if you happen to have a suggestion, please comment that down below and I'll try to get to it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Take care and have a good day.